I see a phone for him. Let's see. You there? Hello.
Hello.
There
Good
you are.
morning.
Hey, I've been here a while.
You
We
have,
know.
have been there for a
I
while,
was,
but you didn't have a microphone for a while, so there wasn't much I could do.
yeah, I was chatting and nobody responded. So
There's a little button that
okay.
says mute, unmute. You can always unmute yourself.
I don't have that. So I just dial in on my phone. I don't know what happens after that.
Okay. All
Oh,
right.
that's funny.
What the heck?
We'll figure it out one day.
We will.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're all set. We're live streaming, so let's get the party started here. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Joel Elston and Alex King. Today is Thursday, August the 15th, 2019. It's 8 a.m. in New York, and that's 5 a.m. Los Angeles time, 1 p.m. in London, 9 p.m. Tokyo, 10 p.m. in Sydney. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And Thursdays are always a day I look forward to because the conversations that I have with Joel Elston and Alex King are unmatched by any of those. Not the other shows are bad. They're not bad shows. Don't get me wrong. But first of all, you have Joel Elston, who is like a wind-up toy. You give him one sentence, and he goes on for 30 minutes. And then you have Alex with her lit-up headphones. And between the two of them, it's like, I'm lucky to get a word in edgewise. So...
Oh, well, that's a great introduction there, buddy.
Right? Joel gets all the praise, and I just have the light up headphones. That's cool. It's cool. I'm here.
No, it's all good. I'm just I'm feeling good today. I don't know. I just woke up feeling good. And I think that's probably because of the work that I've done, over the
Joel,
years.
did you say uh-oh?
Joel said, uh-oh. Yeah, that's always a concern for him. The moment that I say that something's good, he knows he's going to get a call from me in a week saying, oh my God, everything's falling apart.
Yeah. Just using historical thought, I'm like, okay, we got something coming this way.
Something wicked this way comes. Oh, dear.
Now, Joel, I do have to point out that there is an LOA component to that. If you expect that, you're going to get it.
Well, I'm looking at it more from your angle, just letting you know. Okay,
you're gonna dish it off to me, huh?
It is. It's all contrast, Walt. It's just all contrast. That's the key.
All I can say is I'm really glad that we don't vibrate for somebody else. That's all I can say.
Oh my God, the world would be tragic.
Oh yeah, it certainly would be. But
my God.
That. In fact, most people wish they could, but thank goodness it is not part of the process.
Well, right. That's what keeps you in business.
Yeah.
That's where your clients come from.
But yeah, every mother of every young man I deal with, or young woman I deal with, wants desperately to vibrate and control their children, and the fact that doesn't happen is first of all, it is good for my business, and second, it's it just goes to prove that it's just mastering this and understanding how this works it's so simple sounding and so difficult to put into play for many people because it doesn't seem to match what what you think it should be. It's you wish it were something else, but it is not what you think it should be.
This is true. Yeah, and it's one of those things that has a plus minus side to it, because for a lot of people it's a plus because, okay, good, that means I'm in control of my own life, right? I get to decide, I get to make changes, and those changes will produce good results for me. But for those people who, like you alluded to, Joel, who just they want to control their kids' lives, that can be frustrating. I mean, ongoing frustration because you can't do it.
Yeah. Well, it comes out of a good place. It comes out of love, but at the same time, we're the beauty of all this is we are beings that bring about our reality. We do get to choose our perspective, and so that's the beauty of it. At the same time, it's the tragedy of it, because it's when we're making poor choices, or when those and whether it's poor choices or not, but when you're experiencing the reality as you're manifesting it, sometimes there's consequences, and sometimes watching loved ones you see struggle, you feel helpless, and it's I see that, and I want to help desperately, but at the same time, the help that I can provide is greatly limited, because I can only provide my help. I can give direction on how other people can provide their own help, but I can't control that, and that's a balancing act to watch happen.
Well, yeah, and you watch it daily. I mean, you get a front row seat to that, right?
Yes. Yes. And so it's hard.
Well, yeah, it is. Well, that's why you get the big money.
Yeah, I guess that's the truth. But but I know for me, for a long time, I think I'm really good at this, and then I really understand it, and then it's like, okay, I'm unintentionally doing this. So even people who are longtime practitioners of the law of attraction, that do it better, or understand it better than most, that I am not always negative thoughts. That's where most people think, okay, well, I'm doing it wrong because your thoughts are often out of your control. Your response, or how you change that, is in your control.
Right.
You can't help but think thoughts that pop into your brain. You don't control everything that goes on. Now, as time goes on and you adjust your perspective, the thoughts do change to a different view. But while it's happening, I'll hear people say, well, I can't. I'm doing it wrong. I'm having negative thoughts. It's like, no, you can't stop those. What you can do is respond to those thoughts. That's a big difference.
That is a big difference. It's also a bit confusing, the whole idea of control, because we kind of expect, I think most of us think about control in the context of like a micromanager. I'm going to control this thought, and then this thought, and this thought, and this thought, and this thought. And what we find over time is, as we work on ourselves and get into a better mind frame, we still aren't really controlling all the individual thoughts. It's just we're getting more of the better ones.
Right.
Which isn't quite the kind. It's not like you're turning the steering wheel and the car is turning right. You turn the steering wheel, and 10 minutes later the car turns right.
If we were in charge of all of our thoughts, then we'd be dead, because you can't sit here and go, oh, you know what? I would like to eat pie today. Oh, I got to remember to breathe. Got to remember my heart's got to beat. We would be dead. We couldn't keep track of everything.
What a cheery thought. Thank you so much for sharing that.
This is what you get at 8 a.m.
Well, it really is the perfect analogy of why we don't control. You don't have the part of your brain that controls the breathing and the heart beating and the blood cell production and the antibodies to be released. Thank goodness we don't have to sit there and go beat, breathe, breathe. Antibodies. I mean,
antibodies.
That would be a very long day. I mean, you would be exhausted.
Yes.
And so the fact that the body is conditioned to do that, and evolution has supported a negative outlook, and people initially don't understand that back in caveman days, the person who was more in tune to the things that could go wrong had a biological evolutionary advantage, because that they're going to be looking for what's wrong. They'll be able to respond to the tiger that's attacking them much quicker than the one who doesn't have that sort of that fear in tune. So biologically and evolutionary, the advantage to that personality of negative developed. And so the positive, everything's fine person in caveman days died. He got eaten by the tiger. So the genes of the fearful, expecting the worst person went on. So that gets embedded in your DNA and the epigenetic theory that you transfer DNA and thought and stuff as time goes on. So you see that personality type develop. So when I get the question, why do we think negatively? It is our evolution required that. It's not required anymore, but it's hard to undo,
generations,
hundreds of thousands of years of negative. evolution. It works that way. So understanding that, it does help to see how we get to that negative pattern of thinking.
And the good news is that as we continue to work on ourselves, as we get better at this stuff, I find that we do have more control. I mean, I kind of made a joke about turning the steering wheel and, 10 minutes later the car turns. And that's what it seems like sometimes. But also, I mean, I do find that the more that I engage in meditative type experiences, the more quiet the mind becomes. I get a lot more control over deciding what it is I'm going to think about next. And if something comes along that I don't like so much, nope, not going there. Let's see, what would be the pivot point on that? Where am I pivoting to? Oh, I'm pivoting over to this thing I prefer better. Okay, I can do that. So I may not be in control of every thought, but I'm in control a lot more than I used to be.
Well, and you put yourself in a position to be a lot of this, we touched on this in the past. When you surround yourself in an environment that's supportive of what you want to be, you're less likely, when I turn on the news and I hear all the tragedy and all the bad stuff and all the yelling and all the drama, when I turn that on, I'm programming my brain. And so I'm now put myself in that environment of reality. So I have a lot less control over I have more control than I realized by not programming myself to be in that environment. And so you have control maybe at a different level than you realize early. And then you do learn to let that, I had to, for years now, I haven't watched the news. I turned it off. I don't do it because but I don't have any effect on what happens, but my response can be very, the sky is falling. When my son Justin, first moved in a few years ago, when I adopted him from foster care, he's just a great kid. But I had to tell him he was watching a news channel, and he goes, "Dad, I think we're in trouble." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, everything's." I go, No, son, turn that off. That's not real. That has nothing to do with you. That's not real.
And that sounds strange to say that. I mean, when you say that that's not real, well, of course it's real. They're broadcasting it.
Yeah.
In that case, you need to use the remote control to control what you're saying.
Right. And that is what you're in control of. So your reality, there's a couple that I've known loosely. This not directly work with them, but they also have a reality TV show, and they were arrested yesterday for tax evasion and fraud and all this other stuff. And if you were to watch their show, they put on.
Sorry.
No spoilers. Sorry.
I'm not spoiling it. I know who. I was just. Okay, go ahead.
But who they are is not really relevant. But if you ever watch their show, they put on this image and air of all this perfect life, but in reality, they're projecting, the stuff that's behind the scenes. And the reason that's damaging to people is that this isn't even really about them. It's people will watch that show and then compare their life to theirs, thinking, "Wow, they don't seem to even work, and they have this perfect life, and they do all this great stuff. And their problems, while they do seem to address, they're very silly. And, it's like they randomly will have these events that seem to be, real, but they're really staged. And they do all, by the time it's all done and everything unfolds, it's not remotely the truth. Now, that's their world. I'm not worried about their world, but the people that watch that and program themselves, that should be my life. I am lacking because I don't have that life. And the reality is that real image that they're putting up is not accurate. So it's damaging to people because it is, you get that you look at it, you're looking at the contrast of the average person's life who's working 2 or 3 jobs, and their kids aren't these beautiful little perfect kids running around with their problems that seem to be just very superficial, and they solve it in a 30-minute period every week. And, and it's like everything's funny. And when you get behind the scenes, their life, and again, there's probably going to be a lot comes out. Their life is a train wreck. It's horrible stuff happening. I mean, and it goes way beyond that. And again, I'm not even on these people, but you see how this process happens. And I hope everything works out for them. And I hope they have are able to deal with their reality and however they deal with it. But the damage from what we do with the programming of what your life should be gets you distracted from the real abundance in your life. I mean, before all this happened, the average person would say, God, I'd trade lives with them in a heartbeat. They have it so easy.
And if they only knew behind the scenes, though.
Exactly.
If they only knew. Because I research all my reality TV people, and because I want to know how much is real and how much is staged and what I'm watching. So it's like when you find out. None of it with
this family is real.
Yeah, no, none of it. None of it.
Yeah. And so I've known this for a while. I knew them before they were sort of quote unquote famous. And so when I'm looking at this going, what in the world are they going to do on TV? And when I heard this, and because I'm like, wow, this is going to be R-rated if they do. And then to put the show on and going, oh my God, they're acting at that any drama or made up any soap opera is no more scripted than this show about these people's lives.
Facts.
It's no different. It's just there is zero truth to their show. And so, but when people watch that and they call it a TV show that's based on reality, you're looking at it going, wow, I am so lacking in my life. These people live in a multi-million-dollar home. They drive fancy cars. They're never at work. They're always perfectly groomed. And it's just the house is spotless. And oh no, the daughter dinged her car while she was at the country club, and the dad will give a wise lecture on what happened, and then they'll fix it, and then you're like, oh my goodness, he's such a great dad. It's like, oh Lord,
if you only knew.
Yeah. So, and I hope everything works out for them. This isn't being critical of them, but it's just when we're talking about the programming that we're doing to ourselves. When you turn that off and you're able to say, I'm in charge of my own programming, my own reality, and the law of attraction will respond to your programming. That's the key.
It's an interesting thing about how generations are handling this kind of thing, too. I saw a report yesterday that reported on what they're calling Generation Z. I guess that's the name of the generation that comes after millennial. And Gen Z, I guess, goes up to around age 21 or so. So, Alex, your generation is like 21 to late 30s, that kind of thing. Gen Z is up to 21. And the Gen Z folks, there are a couple of takeaways I took from the report that I saw. First one, your generation, Alex, the millennials, started shifting who they're paying attention to for news. So we're talking about news, right? You guys are paying less attention to the network television, a lot less attention to newspapers, more attention to other online sources. Gen Z has you guys beat like crazy. And I couldn't believe it. Can you make a guess who you think 1/3 of all of Gen Z people get their news from? Just what would be your guess?
Instagram.
BuzzFeed.
Okay, but same.
I mean, BuzzFeed is something I barely even knew anything about.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, by the way, after I read the report, and I said, "Oh my God, we're in trouble." But it just reinforced for me that. Plus, the survey that I saw, the report that I saw, showed what the Gen Z folks, what people they admire and want to emulate. And of course, number 2 on the list was the Kardashians. So apparently, Joel, first of all, you're going to be in business for quite some time.
Yes.
Second of all, and there's another thing that goes along with it. They are saying that the Gen Z folks are emphasizing, and this is kind of reversing a long-term trend that has happened over the past few generations. They're more emphasizing individualism than before.
Yes.
Previous generations, it was always going, more and more toward the group. Now it's shifting, it's turning in the other direction. And I find it fascinating that the generation that's turning the corner and heading more toward individualism is paying so much attention to and drawing their signals from people who are far from healthy individuals.
Yes. And that started with the whole hashtag couples goals, hashtag family goals, hashtag life goals. All of that is based on reality TV and what they see. And they're not seeing the whole picture. And that's why I do my research on what's actually happening behind the scenes.
So when those of us who are baby boomers, and we already know we've screwed up the world, when we're sitting back and watching, when we sit back and watch, we can say, ha, 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 revenge is mine, because you guys are doing the same thing. You're just doing it differently.
Oh, man.
I'm not even sure why I read that study. I think I just wanted to learn more about what Gen Z was, because I really didn't know anything about the mindset. And I was hoping it would tell me something more about the mindset. And I can tell you, after having read the report in detail, in full, I still don't know anything about Gen Z.
Well, neither does Gen Z. That's the point. That's the mindset. They don't know anything.
They don't know anything about themselves.
Well, they're consuming information differently. Yeah. I know, Justin, my son's 14, and he his peer group, they get outside, they play hard, they swim. I mean, it isn't that they're totally inactive, but like they don't watch any TV. Television is not a thing for them. It is, they don't turn on TV. They'll watch YouTube.
Yep. Big time.
They watch a lot of YouTube.
Yeah.
They will watch maybe TV shows on YouTube or one of the streaming services, but on their tablet, or they don't have the big TVs. Justin has a TV in his room. And he does play the Xbox on that, but it's not hooked up to anything else. There's no other. They like to, he likes to go to movies, but it's not. Again, their programming is there's influencers and these guys playing video games on the different formats where they're streaming. They'll watch for hours, him and his friends, another person playing a video game.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And so I'm fascinated by that, because it's no different than the different teen idols, it's a different way of it being done,
it's just a different format.
Yeah, and so they're very similar in thought. It's just that because they do today's society, or the way we sort of dissect information and distribute information, anybody who has a tendency to have an ADD or ADHD type brain is greatly reinforced with these just basic tidbits of very brief. There's no stories that, like you're saying, BuzzFeed, everything's a headline. Everything is here's your news. Like, that's it. And most people don't do the clicking. They just read the headline and assume that is something accurate.
Right.
And it's just like, it's like, anything that says there's, one of these on one of the sites I follow, they had a thing that said unusual radio frequencies picked up from outer space. Well, your job is to click on that and then understand that, yes, they are picked up. However, they're naturally occurring. We just have the ability to pick them up now, and they're picking them up from different parts of the universe, right?
Right.
Now, the headline would suggest, of course, that there's a civilization somewhere broadcasting to us.
Right.
So, and so they'll, like the average person say, well, look at that and go, oh, they've obviously found life on another planet, and they just move on. It's like that, and so they're walking around with the belief that we're picking up radio signals from another culture that all was a clickbait headline.
Yeah, that is the best example of clickbait I've ever heard. Because that is so facts. Yeah. People be posting stuff like, and then it's like, did you realize, like, for instance, somebody had posted that a certain celebrity had died, not realizing if you open the article, the certain celebrity had died 2 years ago. So they're like, oh, rest in peace. Oh, we lost another one. And then it's like, dude, where were you in 2016? Because this is when it happened.
It's funny. I mean, I guess funny in the word, but I saw one from a long time. I mean, it was something that was just very old, and I wish I remember who the celebrity was. Yeah. That they posted it as if it were, like you're saying, the headline was new. And it was like 10 years ago.
Right.
And because my reaction when they posted it, I was like, how can that guy still be alive? He'd be like 106 or something, And so then I click on it, and it was like, no, 10 or 12 years ago he died. And you're looking at but again, the short attention span and people not responding to that, in an appropriate way. They just, you see that with quotes a lot. You
Yeah.
know, like there's several quotes attributed to Albert Einstein that are not quotes by Albert Einstein, but I've seen them quoted in books that people have written.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the quotes are now the quotes, while they may be awesome quotes, but they say they're attributed to Albert Einstein, and they're not.
Yeah.
But it's become such an internet meme, you know. It's like, oh well, that is accepted as fact, and it's like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, memes are facts, man. Everybody should know that.
Basically, I'm waiting for the day when the National Enquirer becomes the #1 newspaper in the country. I mean, that's where we're headed.
Well, financially, they're going to be devastated. But if you're right, that theory will be there, but it's going to be.
It just won't be that particular masthead. But yeah, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Because it's just amazing to me how, like you say, people are so drawn in by clickbait and they don't pay attention to what's behind it. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to be drawn in by clickbait, but to not even understand what's going on behind it. That's the part that's really mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And an example of that, I mean, there are lots of examples of that, but I mean, I can kind of invent one. You know, somebody creates a headline that says investigation into the assassination of John Kennedy, and you click on it, it says they discovered that he's still dead. I mean, you end up with. They'll never even see the second part, you know.
Well, you know what the reason for that is because the thing about clickbait is they start off with a really interesting headline, but then when you open the article, they start from the very beginning. Like, oh yes, there'll be the other day I clicked on something that said, oh, supernatural something something something, and I was like, okay, what could possibly there be about supernatural that I don't know? So I clicked on it, and they start from the beginning. It's 2005. The show started, and I was like, I don't have time for all this. So that's where it happens. Yeah. People just don't bother clicking because they don't want to start all the way from the very beginning just to get to the point in the last sentence of the last paragraph.
Which is an interesting thing because it basically means that the whole clickbait theory is starting to fall apart.
Mm. Well, and you know, I've seen this, you know, with politics or one of the things that happens a lot. There's a conservative commentator. Her name is Ann Coulter. Oh yeah. And she will say drastically wild things. And so, well, no, but the point is, she's brilliant because she wants people to freak out and be offended by what she said. That's her goal. She wants that. One of the things that the other side of the aisle did effectively with her is they quit responding to her. Yes. No matter how outrageous she was. And so she just went away. And I actually saw an interview with her by mistake one day.
What a great
where she said, somebody said something, you said this quote, and she literally said, they said, well, how do you think the left is going to respond to this? And she goes, they quit responding to me a long time ago. I wish they'd respond to me. I mean, she understands.
Thirsty.
She makes her money. When Rush Limbaugh says outrageous things on the radio, he wants that attention. He loves the fact that so you see that that's what we become. We're simply we're stating it, not that we were worried about this in the same way we historically thought we'd be worried about it. It's not about that. When the guy that wrote Fahrenheit 9/11, what's his name? I'm dropping
Michael Moore.
Yeah. He will say outrageous things on the other side, and then he'll set off, and the right sort of realized that, and they started ignoring him too, because because I've told that to my conservative and my liberal friends. When you post these outrageous things, you're actually doing what they want you to do. You're not who they're after. You know, when you're mad at Colin Kaepernick for kneeling and you say you're boycotting Nike, you're doing what they want you to do. You know, a 50 or 60-year-old conservative hardcore Trump supporter ranting about Nike and Colin Kaepernick is exactly what they want to happen.
Yes.
Because you're getting the attention of the people. And so the people that have mastered that, they use their momentum of positive or negative. This goes way back. Any publicity is good publicity. has never been more applicable than it is today. Your name trending is the point. Whether it's good or bad, your name trending is the point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at that from a law of attraction perspective, because I think what we're really talking about here has a very cool LOA side to it, which is, I mean, LOA is all about the idea that what you focus on, what you vibrate to, what you feel about is what you get more of. And by that theory, we would presume that we would get more and more clickbait. We get more and more people, we get more and more dogs trying to bark for attention. We would get more and more, stuff, people out there laying their hair on fire, trying to get you to say, look at me, pay attention to my stuff.
Right.
Which is what we get. And yet, by the same token, we also get a bunch of people turning it off. In other words, we get what you were talking about a few minutes ago, Joel, about how we get to choose what we're going to respond to. And apparently what especially the younger generations are now deciding is, I'm not going to pay as much attention anymore. I'm certainly not going to click through and find out what the truth is behind it. I'll just buy whatever the fact is on the surface. And I kind of think that ultimately leads to, eventually, I'm not even going to pay attention to what's on the surface anymore, because I'm even discovering that isn't true.
Well, that is so, I was giving an example of this on a talk I was giving the other day, of this discussion with some businessmen. And when again, for somebody who doesn't talk a lot of politics, I talk a lot of politics. But
no kidding.
Yeah,
just a little.
but I look at it from more of just a fascination versus taking a side.
Right.
And when President Trump first got into office, and he would say these appearing radical, crazy things, the stock market would respond, oh my God, he said this, and it would go down 500 points. It would just, because they weren't used to that just bombastic, whatever drama.
Right.
Well, then it gets to the other side. We'll bomb the hell out of anybody, and the stock market just sort of laughs and moves on. It's like he desensitized them to all the rhetoric, because they were so used to reacting to any hint. One time when Bill Clinton was president, he mentioned the stock market, said, wow, the stock market's really, and he was criticized for mentioning the stock market. It went up like 20% in 2 days after he mentioned how much the stock market was going up. And he was criticized for even mentioning that because it affected the markets. Well, Trump's like just all over the place with it. So that then he's not going to, obviously tone his stuff down, but they get desensitized to it.
Right.
And so it's like, you're like, oh, so you see that, and you start accepting things as reality. You hear this, and again, as I've said before, the law of attraction it's never been about being positive or negative. It's just about understanding positive is a good way to get more things of what you want, but negative is a good way to get more things of what you don't want. It works on both sides. And people that have mastered this in politics or in business, they know that getting your name out there, or just getting it out there, creating that's the energy of it. And you could, you can see that. I mean, I see people fighting horribly over the concept of, with passionately on both sides about whether Michael Jackson did something or didn't do something. The man's dead. And, but the drama and passion about all that, all these years later, is fascinating to see. People that weren't alive when Michael Jackson was alive are defending him on some level,
Oh yeah, sure.
And it's like, huh. So but that idea that we are programmed with a certain, a bias that goes way back, but because we take in, I forget this, I think I mentioned on the show before, I don't have so these are made up stats totally, but we absorb more information in one day today than we did in an entire year in the 1700s.
But do we? That's the interesting question. How much of it do we absorb now? That's the point that I'm trying to get at. I think what's happening here is that we're learning to put up a barrier without even realizing we're putting up a barrier. We're learning to put up boundaries without realizing it.
Right, I'm letting, and that you're right, but I want to rephrase my statement. When I say absorbing, we're taking in. Now you still take it in, but you learn to you learn to block off 90% of it because it's all minutia.
Yeah.
But the amount of information flowing to the brain
Right.
is more in a day than it was, an entire years ago.
Sure.
I still think, just like you're saying, the absorption part, we become desensitized to it, and you're oblivious to most of it. You have to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But before, but that encourages it. Before, you would be able to say, wow, look at the beautiful forest. Look at how incredible this is. And you needed to go out and look for stimulation. Stimulation was the word I was looking for. The stimulation seen by us today is at just incredible levels. The noise, the visuals, the amount of stuff we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you'd read the newspaper that came once a month, or you get whatever, and you would read it front to back and the ads and everything and all of it. And today, you to even sort of absorb things, you have to just sort of do the glancing blows of it all. You got so much to take in. My friends laughingly say, if you're going to send Joel an email, say everything you need to say in the first paragraph, because that's all he's reading.
No. So you get clickbait email.
Yeah. So it's good, but and they're correct, by the way. I mean, so that's awesome,
So they understand you very well. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And you've also developed your own technique to kind of create your boundary about how far you're willing to go with all this information that comes into you. And I think that's what I'm marveling at. I think there's a lot of dysfunctionality. Don't get me wrong. There's a ton of it. But I'm seeing signs. I'm seeing lots of indicators that despite the fact that we're so bad so many times at focusing on what we want and spending most of our time focused on what we don't want, so we keep getting in our lives stuff that we don't want. Despite that fact, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is finding ways to kind of work around all of that and help us get to the point where we need to get to anyway, despite the fact that we're resisting it every step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just marvelous.
Well, and yes, and I again, on the other side of this, this whole podcast, today's episode is a great contrast in what we're talking about, because I also look at us living in an incredible time where all the information to ever exist in the world is available to us at our fingertips.
Yeah.
We have access to instant messaging and contacts, and I can discover, I can literally look at Einstein's theory in great detail and go over each line of the equation just by typing it in on Google. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. So I access to this information allows, whether you like this guy or not, but Elon Musk he's doing fascinating things with all this information. Facebook is yesterday. This I finally have some proof to what I've always been saying. I used a word yesterday with a client. I don't think I've ever said. I was in a doctor's office, and one of my clients was. I was with them, and they mentioned that their foot is hurting, and he said, I have a very wide front of my foot, very narrow the back front. And I said, well, we need to look at some orthotics for you. Mm-hmm. So it's a word I've never said out loud that I'm aware of. And so when I get in my car, the first ad on Facebook is orthotics.
Of course it is.
Yep.
And I'm like, before it was always like, maybe no, that's clear. That's not a word that that's not by mistake. And so, but within that, that's either a good or a bad. I mean, first of all, I don't really care, but at the same time, I literally like, wow, this is awesome that we're in a place where we're not far from that next step of being able to think something. And then here's 50 choices of that coffee maker you were thinking about. And we can have it here by today.
Right.
We're not far from that, but I look at it as fascinating times. Mm-hmm. So it's either negative or positive, and it is like the law of attraction. It's neither. It's what we make of all this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is what we make about the whole thing. And I think I said at the beginning of the show, I'm in a good place today. I'm feeling really good. So maybe that's what's influencing what I'm perceiving today. But I'm just looking at this large picture, and I'm saying to myself, with all the dysfunctionality, with all the craziness, we are still evolving toward a place where we are better and better deliberate creators. I mean, Abraham has apparently told us through their more recent lectures that the 17-second delay between, if you think about a thought for 17 seconds at least, then you'll attract another thought or something else referencing that thought. And if you do it for at least 68 seconds, then you'll start to manifest something physically. They say that 17-second time frame has reduced to 14 seconds because the vibration of the planet has increased. People are becoming more and more aware. They're becoming more and more attuned. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that interesting? At the same time that we are becoming more attuned, and like you say, we're getting to the point where we can attract stuff faster, and all of a sudden we think a thought and there's 50 choices available and we can have it delivered tomorrow and all that stuff. At the same time that all that is happening, we're also, through means that we aren't even hardly paying attention to, we are learning how to filter out all the trash that's coming our way so that we can only focus on what we want. How cool is that? I mean, how great is this universe?
And that's how I look at it. That's the positive side of it. We could look at this from any direction, but we look just like you're choosing to look at it right now. Well, that's what I'm at. That's my reality. There's a emotional freedom technique training that I've been taking for a while. It's basically tapping by Dr. Wayne Dreyer. Great stuff. It helps a lot with anxiety, a lot of different things, and it's fascinating. I've had a lot of work with it. So I've been taking that class. I've been taking an Enneagram class, and I'm like, I am on these calls. I'm like, good. I'll end up this week with 3 certifications in areas that match what I love. I don't need any more certification. I have all of that a human could possibly need. But it's fascinating to me that's there. I'm choosing to program myself with this stuff, and the more I study it, the more I find stuff I want to study, and so I look at it at great times. I manifest a lot faster than I used to. And again, my belief in it happening, I do it without even trying anymore. I have great things happening, and so it's not even a conscious effort anymore. It's great.
Yes, and that's exactly it. When it starts happening in a way that is just practically unconscious, where you aren't even aware that you're hardly doing anything. You actually are. You're choosing what you're focusing on, but it's effortless.
Yeah, I find it in. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you're at that point, like you say, Joel, that's where creation becomes fun, because now you don't have to work at it anymore. Now you don't have to constantly be monitoring all your thoughts and all your feelings. Oh my God, I got too many negatives coming through. I don't like. You don't do that anymore. And all that happens because of the practice of what you've done over the years, learning to be more and more focused on what you want. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
I was going to say, I find it interesting that you stated that fact that the manifestation time has shortened, because it's interesting how it's shortened where collectively our attention spans have also shortened.
Yes.
So it's like, so it's just interesting how that compares to me.
And I think that's what I was looking at. I was noticing that not only has the attention span shortened, but also because that's what we were talking about. As the attention span shortened, say that 5 times fast. As that span shortened, simultaneously, we ended up putting up filtering to block out all the stuff that we didn't want with that short attention.
Yeah, we don't have time for it. Nobody has time for that.
And there was, again, no effort going into that. It just kind of is evolving. It's happening that way.
I have said for a long time that I feel that with the statistics with children being diagnosed with ADHD and ADD over the years, I think that's an evolution of the brain. I don't think it's a mental disorder or it's a functioning disorder, and that supports this evolutionary theory. I think the schools don't know how to teach to that brain. I mean, they're still teaching on a 1950s model of what happens, and that brain doesn't learn that way. But when we adjust the sails and you help kids learn the way they're, I mean, I know 11-year-olds that are doing college level physics work when they understand how to use their brain, and they were considered disabled before. So I mean, it's the idea that because the ability to specialize and really get fine tuned. A dear friend of mine who's a doctor he feels that, you don't need the same medical schooling you used to use. He said you used to have to memorize everything, every bone in the hand, every bone in the body, and every possible disease, because you were sitting across from someone you had to diagnose them. He said, we don't need all that today. They come in our office, we do a blood test, we ask you the question, and then we need to find a specialist that's going to deal with their disorder or their condition. Yeah. So you almost need the training to be about, how to access the information to diagnose, and then train in a specialty that you're attracted to, so you can even get better at it. Yeah. And like if you want to be a neurosurgeon or you can really focus on brain health and how that's going to work. And that's going to be applicable as time goes on. Certifications are more valuable than college degrees right now.
It's crazy, but it's true.
Facts.
Yeah. By the way, I also want to point out that we were talking for a large part of the show about people who are constantly trying to get attention, and they're even trying to, they're programming stuff to get attention from the other side. I mean, you gave some really good examples about that. I want to point out that that's exactly what the educational establishment does. They're trying to get the attention of the kids, and they're doing everything they can to get that attention. And when they aren't getting the attention, they're introducing drugs to make sure they get the attention. Yeah, that's what the ADHD drugs are all about. This is actually a good thing, because I think what's happening is society is beginning to recognize there's really no difference between what the teachers are doing and what Khloe Kardashian is doing. They're basically their value systems may be quite different, but the mechanism is almost identical. And when you start looking at it that way, I think that starts to demystify a lot of the stuff. One of the reasons that the school system is so far behind is the mysticism that's around it. Well, that mysticism is going away, and I see that as a healthy thing. So even there, I mean, we're looking at this stuff that has this dysfunctionality to it, but even there, what we're saying is there's an evolution going on here, and it's a good evolution. It's evolving toward where we need to be.
But and I also, not to challenge what you're saying, I don't think it's good or bad. It's either. It's your perspective. If you want things not to change, it's not good. If you're excited about what comes up, I think it's awesome. But that's the beauty of all this. There are people that think we are living in end times. There's people that that really believe that things are falling apart, and I'm looking at it just like you're saying. So we're evolving to this next level. It's and again, so much it's a good thing to us. You're absolutely right. And there's other people that feel it's the absolute worst thing that could possibly be happening.
That's true.
And I think it was in the early 1900s. There was someone when they were talking about opening the patent office or changing the way the patents were done. He actually made the statement, we don't need to worry about that because everything that's been invented has already been invented.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, I mean, that was like 1907, the guy said that. So it's like nothing had been, from today's perspective, nothing had been invented at that point. Nothing, right. And when our kids, dig up the podcast record 300 years from now, when our great grandkids do this, they're going to listen to this podcast laughing that we thought we had so much stuff.
Right?
They had to actually type stuff into the computer or talk to the computer instead of just having their interface tune in.
Right. Exactly.
But it is. I think we live in amazing times, but I think I have an amazing life. I think so a lot of this is simply the law of attraction. I mean, it is the law of attraction that is unfolding, and I really think there are no better times to be in tune. The law of attraction has always been relevant, but the ability to understand it, use it, and implement it today is as you say, it's quicker, it's faster, and they'll keep getting quicker and faster as time goes on. Because the only delay in the law of attraction or thought processing is us. It's not any other thing. So as we adapt, as we get there, from 17 seconds to 14 seconds down to 5 seconds down to 2 seconds, it's simply us, and that's what's going to be the case.
Which is very, very good point. And it's probably where we should be winding stuff up as we get into the last 10 minutes of the show here, talking about how it is that our perspective is really what's making the difference. I mean, those of us who've been exposed to law of attraction teaching early on, our initial reaction is, oh, great, I can attract all these great things I want into my life.
Mm-hmm.
We don't realize at that point that we're attracting already everything into our lives.
Right.
We don't realize that we've been using this for years unintentionally, and that all this stuff keeps showing up because of what we're focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
But as time goes on and as we learn more and more, we begin to realize exactly that. We begin to say, oh, well, yeah, I guess I really I did attract the fact that I kicked that table as I was walking around the corner. And like, oh, well, all right, I guess it's on me. You know? And then we keep evolving beyond that. We keep learning more and more beyond that. And as we learn more and more, we begin to realize how important our perspective is. And as we learn how important our perspective is, we start to change our perspective. And as we start to change our perspective, things get better. And then we say, so that's what this is really all about. It isn't attracting the shiny stuff into our lives. Mm-hmm. It's attracting the lives.
Yes.
It's attracting the lifestyle. It's attracting having a happy, good, exciting life. You described it beautifully, Joel, about how, everything looks good from your perspective. And that's it. That's exactly what you end up with the more that you study this stuff, which is cool.
Agreed.
It does make an incredible difference when you have that ability to just automatically zone in and see and filter the world through the perspective in which you choose. It's just it is the greatest gift I have received in the understanding. My life, I'm the same person that was born into my life. I see it a lot differently now. And so having this energy or this superpower to be able to say, yes, I have this life. And and I also understand it used to be I'm doing it wrong, or I'm having bad thoughts, or, I had a negative thought. And again, understanding all of that, it isn't about a false fake. That's where I lived. I thought it was about being falsely fake in the beginning. I thought, let me just be falsely positive here, and it's going to be positive. Now that might have some value, but it was not it was my perspective on things that were negative that I had to change. It wasn't doing away with any negative thought. Things really bad happen. My son died. That's real. There is just no positive spin to that on any side. Does that make sense? There's not. However, what my response can be, looking at, what his life represented to me with the incredible joy he brought and all that. Yeah, it doesn't change the fact that given the option, without any hesitation, I want him back right now. That's not happening. But I keep my perspective of it remains. He brought incredible joy to my life. It's understanding I'm in charge of that view. It's not that negative things don't happen. So that took me a while to understand that, because wow, something bad happened. I thought I was doing this right. No, bad things are going to happen. My response and my view of them and how I'm able to feel about them, that's the part that remains in my control.
Right.
Which is exciting, I think.
Yes.
The fact that is in your control, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where all the change happens. Right there, which is very good. By the way, I want to make sure I get this in, because I tend to leave this out, especially on the Thursday shows. I don't know why that is. I think it's because we just kind of go off on these topics. But for those of you who are not yet subscribers, which is about 10 to 15% of you, please do consider becoming a subscriber. You can now find us almost everywhere. Many of you are hearing us on PRN, but we're also on all the major podcast platforms. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Pandora. The list goes on and on. We're on almost all of them now. But if you can't find us, just go to loatoday.net and do a little subscription there at the top of the page. It walks you right through it. And then when you're done, make sure that you're sharing, of course, with other people that they know where they can get their daily dose of happy. And feel free to watch us on YouTube, because we now live stream to YouTube as we're doing the recordings for this podcast. And now let's tell people how they can find us on YouTube.
Well, you go to YouTube and you search LOA Today podcast videos. And once you see our smiling faces, you can click the subscription button. And next to the subscribe button, Well, next to the subscribe button, you will see a bell, a little silver bell. So make sure when you click the silver bell, you click always, so you will always be notified when we're live.
I mean, where else can you have a silver bell in the summertime instead of at Christmas? I mean, how good is
my
that?
house? Everything's silver. That's not purple.
So anyway, do be sure that you become a subscriber. That way you can get us doing our shows. We do shows 5 days a week. And there's not just this Thursday show with Joel and Alex. Alex does a show with me with Bill G on Tuesday. We got Louis D'Souza on Monday, Cindy Chavez on Wednesday, Linda Armstrong on Friday. So it's a different person every single day. And all the shows are different, even though we're all talking about the same topic. And by the way, Joel, you were talking about tapping before. I wanted to tell you a little bit of a story that Cindy shared on the show yesterday when we were talking about Neville Goddard. She says that she and her family have been doing EFT tapping for years now. And she said that she has 2 sons, both of whom are grown. One of them was so much into biking, he actually became a pro biker at one point. And early on in his development of his career, he was in a race and they were all at the race. And he was in the middle of it and he was completing a lap. And as he was going past where they were sitting, he gave a little signal to his brother that basically meant, I'm not feeling I'm in alignment right now. Do some tapping to help me out.
Oh, that's cute.
And so his brother started doing some tapping. This is like years and years ago. Started doing some tapping, helped him get into alignment. The next lap around, he gives him a thumbs up saying, yep, that's great. I got there. And he went on to do well in the race. And I just wanted to let you know, you're not the only one who's into the CFT, and how cool is it you can actually help somebody else with it at the same time that you're helping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is, I really encourage that EFT, of course, is to me is can be effectively used as a law of attraction. And I'd known about it, and I've had a client that had been struggling, and we tried every intervention I knew, and I was about ready to just say, look, you're welcome to keep seeing me. I just can't come up with something that's going to help you here. Debilitating anxiety and depression. And so we're working with a medical doctor as well. And I just, I said, look, I said, the last thing that is even in my wheelhouse is, I said, and I'm not really sure about this stuff. I've never, but we talked about it. I knew a lot of people that were big fans of it. So we went through the processes of tapping and with a very skeptical, like I said, it certainly won't hurt you.
Right.
And he really did it. So I didn't think anything about it. I get a call from him in the middle of the week, a few weeks ago. And he goes, I'm at 0 level anxiety. I'm going,
whoa.
You shut your mouth.
Yeah. And I was like, well, okay, well, Xanax or what? I trying to figure out what. And and he's like, no, he said this tapping stuff, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe, and he's been on, and I saw him again, late last week, and this has really sort of motivated me to go get all this and study it more. Mm-hmm. He said, Joel, I'm doing it every day, and it's a process of, and he said, I'm not saying I'm all day with 0. He said, but I haven't had we use a rating scale, SUD, it's subjective what you think it is. But it's basically, every day was a 9 or a 10 for the previous couple of years. Mm-hmm. It is 0 to 3 since he's been doing the tapping.
Wow.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
So,
and I got to ask a question here in the last couple minutes we got left. He has experienced a huge shift, a really huge shift. And when you experience a huge shift like that and you're in that new zone for the first time, it can feel strange. Has he experienced that feeling like, wow, this feels really unusual?
Well, his description basically was trying to come up with a wording, but it was, he knew something was missing. He feels something's missing. And
right.
He said, as weird as it sounds, he said, I was having anxiety over not having anxiety.
Right. Yeah.
But he kept trying to figure out, where did it go? What?
Right.
And he said he spent like days trying to figure out, did the meds just kick in? Yeah. And he said tapping can't do it. And so even with a very skeptical mindset and a last minute Hail Mary, he is reporting, and there's other people, if you do research, report that this is the most effective tool he's ever used. So that's super effective for him. And again, every individual, this isn't medical advice, or you always work with your doctor and you look at every tool that's in the toolkit, and everybody's source in anxiety and depression has a different beginning and underlying cause. So this is by no means a diagnosis or a suggestion to stop working with your doctor, but it doesn't hurt to look into this type of. Yeah, let's look into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into it because I've exhausted all the tools, and medication.
Well, apparently you haven't exhausted this one, so put this one to work. There you go.
That's what I'm gonna do. Talk to my doctor. See what happens.
And there's tons of free stuff online. Just there's YouTube stuff. There's free trainings. There's you could get into. You don't need to. I'm taking really some advanced certifications, but you don't you don't have to do all that. You can simply get all you need, how to practice it for yourself online, and then like anything else, there's that superficial level that you're able to do that's very effective. And of course, my ADD brain wants to know every single thing and origin behind. So I'm going to study the hell out of it for a few weeks. So.
Well, we'll expect a good report then. By the way, how does somebody reach out to Joel Elston, the coach, before we leave?
joelelston@gmail.com is probably the simple thing. joelelston.com is my website.
All right. And Alex, anything that we need to know about? Any spoilers or anything good? I mean, I know I still have to look at the script for TGIG, but anything else?
Yes, there's a possibility. Well, first of all, Supernatural is not being canceled after season 15.
A lot of happy fans.
The fans are excited about that. And I believe Grey's Anatomy, we're having someone from the past is coming back.
Ooh, okay. So tune in for that as well.
See who it is. I think it's Callie personally, but yeah.
Okay. Well, the prediction has been put on the table. So thank you so much, Joel. Thank you very much for your insights as well. Thank you to our live streamers and especially to our podcast and PRN audiences. We really appreciate and love you so much. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.